I'm joined by Denis Campbell. He is the editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. He's also host of Worldview with Denis Campbell at youtube.com/worldview show. Denis, since the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster, we've been discussing the nuclear radiation issues both in Japan, but also potentially drifting across the Pacific Ocean to the U.S. We've talked about seafood. We've talked about items washing ashore on the west coast of the U.S. What's the situation now in terms of actual radiation reaching the west coast?
Well, you have two forms of radiation. You have the airborne radiation, which came as a result of the release of steam and energy. That happened pretty much as the disaster was happening 2.5 years ago. And they were able to track the airborne amount of radiation across the Pacific Ocean with, it roughly losing a little bit of its potency by the time it actually reached California. But still, it was a significant amount of radiation in the air. The other type of radiation is the radiation from these three damaged reactors, crippled reactors. What they can't tell, because literally if anybody were to go close to them, they'd vaporize. Their bodies would completely disappear. That's how strong it is that there are nuclear reactions going on the bottom of each of those reactors. And what everybody suspects has happened, but nobody can really tell for certain, is that the bottom of those reactors have completely melted through, and it's gone down into the groundwater and then, of course, out into the Pacific Ocean. Now, they can measure things such as strontium and cesium and some of these major chemicals, major radioactive elements. But the problem is that it's taking the various currents across the ocean. And the projection is that it will actually hit the West Coast sometime in the beginning of 2014 or throughout the course of that year. There's absolutely no way of knowing, but there have been some telltale signs. For example, you mentioned some of the tuna issues. The bluefin tuna spawn, they take 1 to 4 months to then make it off the U.S. coast, West Coast, and they have been found with very high levels of radiation in them. The other issue was in Canada, because it hits Canada first and works its way on down the coast. But they had a major herring kill where a number of them were found to be, for some reason unknown to anybody, hemorrhaging. Their eyes were falling out. It was, a very massive kill. And the other issue is that the whales, the pilot whales that normally are running up and down off the coast of Canada, they normally are singing and making a lot of noise. They've gone silent completely. So there's a lot of things happening, but nobody really knows for certain until the full effect of the underwater radiation plume hits the West Coast.
One of the biggest points of, I guess I would say, both controversy and confusion based on the emails I get is whenever I discuss radiation levels measured at X point are 5, 10, 20, 500 times higher than they should be or previously were. And then the counter to that I get from people is, hold on a second, David. Radiation levels may be higher, but we have to look at what are the radiation levels in absolute terms. Are they, even though they may be 5, 10, or 20 times higher, are they high enough to really be significant when it comes to human health? So where are we on that right now?
Well, I listened to a YouTube video by a medical doctor in Santa Barbara by the name of Dr. Stephen Jose. We're going to have him on the program. He delivered about a 43-minute talk on the impact of radiation. And of course, all these people that are talking about it in terms of constancy are also thinking that it will dilute over time because of the size and the mass of the Pacific Ocean. Now, the problem is that for 2.5 years, radiation-filled water has been leaking from that plant into the ocean, and there has been absolutely zero drop-off in the amount of radiation right there near the plant. And indeed, this is what everybody has been saying now, is that this radiation plume or underwater cloud is now what's making its way across the Pacific Ocean, and it takes a while to get there. It's taken 2.5 years, may even be 3 years before it actually reaches there. But the full effects of it is that it's going to, the fact that it's continuing to be put into the system and put into the Pacific Ocean from this plant, there are chemical reactions underneath that we have no idea what's actually happening, is the main cause for concern. And some are saying it could be as early as March of 2014. Some are saying it could be the end of 2014, early 2015, when that big plume actually hits. A couple of other issues that are with this. One of them has to do with the storage tanks for the spent nuclear rods that sat above the reactors. Now, those have had some major issues, and as early as next week, they're going to be trying to vent some of that as well and trying to clear some of that, and that could cause another explosion or chemical-like reaction, which would make the earlier ones look silly. And then, of course, you have that underground pool of molten radiation. So this thing is by no means under control. And, if you look at the way that the Japanese government has handled this, everything was set up in a way to suppress any sort of stories about this so that it could be very, very beneficial for winning the 2020 Olympic Summer Games for Tokyo. I think there's going to perhaps be a reconsideration of that once these stories really begin to hit. This Dr. Jose, you'll find him on YouTube. He's spelled Hosea. His talk is frightening, chilling, science-based, fact-based, and it's why we want to have him on the program, because it's the sort of thing where, we really want to dig even a few levels deeper into this.
Yeah, and to kind of wrap up, you talk about, we talked off the air about how you don't like the kind of sky is falling mentality that takes over some of the discussion around nuclear power and radiation. Statistically speaking, most nuclear power plants don't have these issues. However, it's hard for me to find the balance when discussing this, to be totally honest, because I feel like I'm dancing a fine line. I'm either not concerned enough or I'm too concerned,
Yeah, it's a tough issue, and what I always encourage people, because I do a lot with hydraulic fracturing or fracking, in fighting that particular fight. And I get a little bit upset with my progressive brethren and sisters when they try to really exaggerate stories in an effort to get broader attention. What I try to say is, guys, stick to the facts. The science is scary enough, and don't let the major corporate media push you around, because 97% of climate science will come to your defense and say, look, this is the science fact-based world. They live in a completely different world. If you give them equal time, which is what most of these media outlets do, you then make quack science, the 3% quack science, have the same level of weight as the 97% real science. That's where I get upset. Stick to the facts, stick to the science, press your argument firmly, but don't get hysterical, because when you get hysterical, that just drives the polarization. And don't let these the quack science of the oil company sponsored science get a foothold at the table. The media needs to hit these people and hit them hard when they're spewing general BS.
All right, Denis Campbell. He is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. Don't miss the follow-up with Dr. Hosea coming up soon on Worldview with Denis Campbell. Will that be at youtube.com/Worldview Show?
It will. We're still trying to sort it, but as soon as I have it, it'll put up. It may even go up over the weekend. But stay tuned, as they say. Watch this space. And of course, we had Dr. Reza Aslan last week on BookView, so it's been a good week so far.